There's a moment in your life when everything you thought you knew shatters. Not because the world betrayed you, but because you finally realized you were never playing at your full power. This is not about working harder. This is not about being light. It's about owning your voice fully. So if you're tired of shrinking, settling, or staying silent, this is your wake-up call. You're not too loud. You're not too intense. You're not too passionate. Somewhere along the world convinced you that being fully yourself was a problem that needed fixing, that your boldness needed softening, that your confidence needed shrinking. But here's the truth, the world doesn't get to decide how much of you is too much. You were never meant to be half of anything. You were born whole, unapologetically whole. And the moment you stop apologizing for who you are, everything starts to shift. Think about it. How many times have you held back a thought, an idea, a dream just to keep the peace? Just to avoid being judged or labeled? Maybe they said you were arrogant when you were just self-assured. Maybe they called you aggressive when you were simply assertive. And so you learned to play small. You learned to second-guess your instincts. You learned to dilute your own brilliance so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But shrinking yourself to fit into other people's expectations is not humility. It's self-abandonment. And you can't live your purpose while betraying your truth. When you stop apologizing, something powerful happens. You reclaim your energy. You stop wasting time trying to make yourself palatable. You stop rehearsing your words to avoid offense. You start showing up real, flaws and all. And real is magnetic. People may not always like it, but they'll respect it. Because authenticity cuts through the noise. In a world of filters and facades, the one who dares to be raw, honest, and unapologetically themselves becomes impossible to ignore. Owning who you are doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you grow on your own terms. It means you stop chasing approval and start chasing alignment. There's a difference between evolving and erasing yourself, between learning and conforming, between expanding and disappearing. Your growth should make you more of yourself, not less. When you live in alignment with your truth, your choices become clearer. Your circle gets tighter. Your path becomes sharper. And the world begins to respond not to the version of you that's edited, but to the version of you that's real. And yes, it's going to feel uncomfortable, because unapologetic people challenge the status quo. You will lose people, you will face resistance, but you will also find your tribe. The ones who don't just tolerate you, they see you. The ones who don't flinch when your fire shows, they fan it. And more importantly, you'll find yourself, the version of you that isn't exhausted by pretending. The version of you that wakes up every day knowing they are standing in full alignment with their values, their truth, and their voice. You were not put on this earth to fit in. You were put here to stand out. Standing out comes at a cost, but it's a cost worth paying. Because nothing is more expensive than living a life where you're constantly apologizing for your existence. You are not too much. You're exactly enough. You stop waiting for the world to accept you, and instead you accept yourself so fully that the world has no choice but to catch you need a green light to chase what's already burning inside you. The world trains us to wait for permission, for validation, for someone to say, now you're ready. But that moment rarely comes. Because no one sees your vision the way you do. No one feels the urgency inside your chest the way you do. So you wait, and before you know it, the fire dies down. Not because you weren't capable, but because you handed the keys to your future over to people who never had the right to hold them. There's a deep lie we've been sold, that we need to earn our voice, that we must first get a degree, gain experience, be chosen, be praised, then we can step up. But Some of the most powerful movements, the most disruptive breakthroughs, and the most iconic success stories didn't come from those who waited. They came from people who were tired of waiting, people who stood up in rooms they weren't invited into, people who walked into spaces without being asked and made their presence undeniable. If you keep waiting for the world to anoint you, you'll stay invisible. The world respects action, not hesitation. Let's be real, waiting is comfortable. It's safe. You can stay in the wings and tell yourself the timing isn't right, that you're still learning, still building. But deep down, you know that's not always the truth. Sometimes waiting is just fear dressed up as strategy. And fear is clever. It tells you that you're being responsible, being smart, being cautious. But what fear doesn't tell you is that you're also being silent. That you're letting time pass you by while others with half your talent step into the spotlight simply because they dare to act. Taking initiative doesn't mean you'll always feel confident. It doesn't mean you'll have it all figured out. What it means is this: you move anyway. You launch the idea. You speak up in the meeting. You post the message. You make the call. Confidence isn't a requirement, it's a result. It's built every time you choose action over paralysis. The difference between the ones who make it and the ones who don't. It's not always talent. It's not always timing. It's that the bold move while the rest hesitate. And yes, when you stop waiting for permission, you're going to ruffle feathers. People might call you reckless, arrogant, unqualified. But don't mistake their discomfort for your misstep. People fear what they can't control. And when you take control of your own narrative, you become unpredictable. That's not a flaw, it's your power. Because once you stop living for other people's comfort, you start creating a life rooted in your own clarity. And that kind of life, it commands attention. Not because you scream for it, but because you earn it by showing up over and over again. The truth is, your life doesn't begin when others say you're ready. It begins when you decide that your voice matters, that your dreams are valid, that your presence doesn't need approval to be real. You were never meant to wait in line for someone to choose you. You were born to walk in, take your space, and build your own table if none exists. The world doesn't need another silent genius. It needs you fully present, fully alive, fully unleashed. Not someday, not when it's perfect, but right now. Because waiting never made history, action did. ChatGPT said you don't need anyone's permission to start. Not your parents, not your friends, not your boss, not society. Somewhere along the way, you were taught to wait for someone to validate your ambition, to tell you you're smart enough, experienced enough, worthy enough. But here's the truth: no one will ever fully see the vision you hold in your heart because it wasn't given to them, it was given to you. And that makes it your responsibility to move on it without delay, without apologies. Waiting for someone to say you're ready is just another way of giving your power away. You are already enough to begin. There's a myth that success starts with a green light, that you'll know the exact right time to launch, to speak, to lead. But success rarely comes with clarity up front. It's built in the doing. It's revealed in motion. The most powerful people in the world weren't the ones who waited, they were the ones who decided. They showed up, unsure but determined. They entered rooms they weren't invited into. They raised their hand when no one else did. If you're waiting to feel 100% ready, you'll miss 100% of your moments. The people who win are the ones who move first and figure it out along the way. And let's be honest, it's scary. Of course it is. Acting without permission means walking into the unknown. It means facing criticism, rejection, and failure. But fear is not a stop sign, it's a signal. It means you care. It means the thing you're about to do matters. Don't let fear trick you into believing it's a sign to wait. Waiting won't make you fearless. Action will. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to move forward while fear rides in the back seat. You don't need to silence the fear, you just need to stop letting it drive. So many people are sitting on gold. They have ideas that could change lives, messages that could inspire millions, businesses that could disrupt entire industries, but they wait. They wait for someone to validate their dream, for someone to discover them, for the timing to feel perfect. But no one is coming. No one is going to magically arrive and give you permission to be great. That's your job. You're the one who has to say, I'm doing this. And once you do, the doors begin to open not because they were unlocked, but because you had the audacity to knock. When you stop waiting for permission, you reclaim your time, your power, and your path. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You no longer wait to be chosen, you choose yourself. And that shift changes everything. People notice, opportunities appear. The world starts to reflect the energy you bring. And suddenly what once felt impossible starts to feel inevitable. Why? Because action builds momentum, and momentum is louder than doubt. It drowns out the noise, silences the critics, and makes space for results to speak for themselves. You have one life, one chance, one voice. And if you spend it waiting for someone to give you permission, you'll watch others live the dreams you are more than capable of achieving. The hard truth is that greatness is not assigned, it's claimed. Every step forward you take without permission sends a message to the world. I belong here. You don't earn your seat by waiting quietly in the back. You earn it by walking in, speaking up, and doing the work. You don't need to be chosen to lead. You need to choose yourself. Every single time. Everything they told you to hide, your accent, your culture, your story, your struggle, is actually the very thing that makes you powerful. But most people spend their lives trying to blend in, trying to be accepted, trying to meet the invisible standards set by a world that was never designed to celebrate difference. They silence parts of themselves to avoid judgment. They downplay their uniqueness to fit into rooms that were never meant to hold their greatness. But the truth is, your difference is not a weakness, it's your leverage, it's your competitive edge. And when you embrace it, you stop competing, you start owning. We live in a world that glorifies sameness. Social media filters us into trends, corporate environments reward conformity, and society loves to label anything that stands out as too much or not enough. So we shrink. We edit ourselves. We shave off the edges to become more professional, more marketable, more acceptable. But in doing that, we lose the most magnetic part of who we are, our authenticity. Real impact doesn't come from imitation. It comes from originality. The world doesn't remember the ones who fit in, it remembers the ones who stood out and owned it unapologetically. Your difference tells a story. It carries experience, it holds pain, triumph, perspective, and insight that no one else can replicate. That's your value, that's your genius. Maybe it were raised differently. Maybe you had to fight harder. Maybe your path was messier, less traditional, more complex. Good. That means you bring something rare to the table. Something deeper. Something the world hasn't seen before. The problem isn't your uniqueness, the problem is the fear of showing it. But when you stop hiding, you start healing, not just for you, but for every person watching who's still afraid to be seen. Look at the people who truly break through. The ones who lead revolutions, shift cultures, and redefine what's possible. They don't succeed because they fit the mold, they succeed because they broke it. They weren't afraid to speak differently, look differently, act differently, and yes, they were criticized. Yes, they were doubted. But they kept showing up as themselves. That's the price of authenticity. But it's also the reward, because once you're seen for who you really are, the opportunities that come your way are real. They're not built on performance, they're built on truth. There's power in turning your difference into your brand, into your voice, into your movement. When you fully own your identity, your roots, your resilience, your rhythm, you become unforgettable. You stop chasing trends because you are the trend. You stop mimicking others because you understand that what you bring cannot be copied. The market is flooded with replicas, but there's only one you. That's the most powerful positioning in the world. Not being the best version of someone else, but being the boldest version of yourself. And sure, it's uncomfortable. There will be moments when you feel exposed, when your difference makes you the only one in the room. But that's not a sign you don't belong, it's a sign you're leading. Anyone can blend in. It takes courage to stand out. It takes power to say, this is who I am, and not flinch when the world doesn't clap. But the people who change the game, the innovators, the rule breakers, the visionaries, they never waited for applause. They knew their difference was the reason they were destined to rise. And they walked in that truth even when their voice shook. Discipline is not punishment. It's power. It's the choice to honor your goals more than your excuses. Most people wait for motivation to strike like a wave they hope will carry them to success. But motivation is fleeting. It's inconsistent. It comes and goes based on mood, weather, and comfort. Discipline, on the other hand, shows up every day, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it, that's the difference between people who wish for greatness and those who work for it. Discipline isn't about being perfect, it's about being consistent. It's the decision to show up again and again, no matter what. Your future is being built in the dark, when no one's watching, when no one's clapping, when the world is asleep and you're still grinding. That's discipline. It's waking up early when your bed feels like heaven. It's sticking to your plan when distractions scream for your attention. It's saying no to things that feel good now, so you can have the life you really want later. Discipline is the invisible architect behind every visible success. You see the results, but you don't see the sacrifices. You admire the destination, but you don't see the detours, the early mornings, the late nights, the setbacks. And that's where the real story is written. We live in a culture that rewards fast wins, instant results, overnight success. But the truth is, anything worth building takes time. It takes grit. It takes showing up on the days you're tired, uninspired, and questioning everything. Discipline doesn't guarantee ease, it guarantees growth. And growth isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it means isolating yourself, cutting out the noise, working in silence while the rest of the world plays. But if you're willing to do what others won't, you'll live a life others can't. Because discipline doesn't just build success, it builds self-respect. The more disciplined you are, the less permission you need. You don't need someone else to validate your work ethic. You don't need external rewards to stay committed. You become your own fuel. That's when things start to shift. You no longer chase deadlines, you set the pace. You no longer depend on others to push you, you drive yourself. And that kind of self-leadership, it's rare. It's magnetic. People start to notice not just what you're doing, but how you're doing it. With focus, with fire, with a level of commitment that demands respect without saying a word. There's freedom in discipline. Most people confuse freedom with doing whatever they want whenever they want. But true freedom is the ability to choose long-term purpose over short-term pleasure. It's knowing that you control your time, your energy, your path. When you're disciplined, you're not reactive, you're intentional. You don't bounce around based on impulse or emotion. You move with clarity. You know what you're building and you know why it matters. That kind of clarity is unstoppable. Because once you know where you're going, distractions lose their power. And yes, discipline is hard. It requires sacrifice. It demands focus. But every day you practice it, you build something stronger than just results, you build character. You build resilience. You train your mind to follow through no matter the circumstance. That's what separates those who dabble from those who dominate. Promise to yourself even when no one's looking. Because at the end of the day, discipline is not just what you do, it's who you become. Success is never handed to you on a silver platter. It's earned in the trenches through grit, through persistence, through showing up every single day when the spotlight isn't on you. The reality is this: talent is just the starting line. What separates those who achieve their dreams from those who only dream is the relentless refusal to quit. It's the grit that keeps you moving when every part of your body and mind begs you to stop. Success doesn't reward comfort, it rewards courage. The courage to push through doubt, to face rejection, and to keep going even when the path seems impossible. There's a misconception that success is linear, that if you're talented enough, it'll come quickly and smoothly. But the truth is, success is messy. It's filled with setbacks, failures, and moments of crushing disappointment. You will stumble. You will fall. You will question if it's does it. And that's the crucible where true grit is forged. When you persist through the storm, when you refuse to let temporary defeat define you, that's when transformation happens. You start to realize that failure isn't the enemy, it's a teacher. Every no you hear, every door slammed in your face is simply preparation for the yes that will change everything. Persistence isn't about stubbornness, it's about strategic resilience. It's about learning when to pivot and when to stand firm. It's about having a vision so strong that even when the road forks and uncertainty threatens to pull you off course, you stay committed to the destination. Grit demands flexibility paired with unwavering determination. You must be adaptable without losing sight of your goal. This balance is what separates those who survive from those who thrive. You don't just endure challenges, you use them to sharpen your focus, to deepen your resolve, and to build a foundation that no setback can shake. When the world doubts you, grit becomes your loudest voice. It says, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. It's the inner fire that keeps you grinding when no one else believes in your vision. That fire is fueled by passion, but it's sustained by discipline and resilience. Grit transfers raw talent into mastery. It turns dreams into plans. It turns plans into reality. Without grit, talent fades. Without persistence, potential remains unrealized. But with grit, there is no limit to what you can achieve. The road to success is lonely. You will face criticism, isolation, and moments of deep self-doubt. It's easy to feel like giving up when the cheers are distant and the support is minimal. But grit teaches you to rely on your own strength. It forces you to become your own biggest champion. That internal belief, that refusal to quit even in your darkest moments, is what carries you through. It's what separates the dreamers from the doers. The ones who make history are the ones who keep walking forward, step by step, no matter the obstacles. Ultimately, grit is not just a trait, it's a lifestyle. It's the way you show up every day when the excitement fades and the work gets hard. It's choosing to keep going when others stop. It's knowing that success isn't a destination but a process, and that the journey requires patience, resilience, and relentless determination. Grit is the backbone of every success story. It's the silent power that fuels greatness long after the spotlight dims. And it's available to anyone willing to dig deep and never give up. It's easy to believe that your circumstances define you, that your background, your struggles, your failures, and even your current situation set the limits of what you can achieve. But the truth is, your story is not your destiny. Every setback, every hardship, every no you faced is not a wall but a stepping stone. You were not born to be confined by the circumstances handed to you. Instead, you were born to rise above them, to rewrite the narrative, and to create a life that defies expectations. The moment you stop seeing yourself as a product of your past and start seeing yourself as the author of your future is when transformation begins. You might have been told your dreams are too big, that your goals are unrealistic, or that success is only for a select few. But those voices belong to fear, and fear is the loudest liar you will ever encounter. The only limits that truly exist are the ones you accept. When you refuse to let your circumstances define you, you unlock an unstoppable force within yourself. That force is resilience, the kind that doesn't just bounce back from adversity but uses it as fuel to propel forward. Resilience turns pain into power, obstacles into opportunities, and doubt into determination. Your mindset shapes your reality more than any external factor ever will. If you believe you're stuck, you will be stuck. But if you believe in your ability to grow, learn, and evolve, you create a path where none seemed to exist before. Changing your mindset is not about ignoring the challenges, but about choosing how you respond to them. It's about training your mind to see possibilities when others see barriers. It's about cultivating hope when despair tries to settle in. This shift in perspective is the foundation for breaking free from limiting circumstances and stepping into your true potential. Growth doesn't happen overnight, and it rarely follows a straight line. It's messy, non-linear, and often uncomfortable. You will face moments of doubt and discouragement. You will make mistakes. But those mistakes are not failures, they are lessons. Each challenge you encounter is an invitation to stretch beyond what you thought was possible. When you commit to growth, you commit to a lifelong journey of becoming stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your purpose. This commitment turns setbacks into setups for greater success. It's also essential to surround yourself with people who believe in your ability to transcend your circumstances. Community can be a powerful catalyst for change. When you connect with those who support your vision, challenge your limitations, and hold you accountable, your growth accelerates. You begin to internalize their belief in you, and it becomes easier to believe it yourself. But be cautious, energy is contagious and so is doubt. Choose your circle wisely, because the people you surround yourself with will either lift you higher or hold you back. Taking ownership of your story means no longer playing the victim. When you choose growth, you choose a future unbound by your history. And that choice is the most powerful act of rebellion and self-love you can make. And so, the choice is yours. To remain confined by the limits you once accepted, or to rise boldly into the life you were always meant to live. Remember, your circumstances don't define you. Your courage, your mindset, and your relentless commitment to growth do. When you own your story, embrace your power, and refuse to settle, you become unstoppable. This is your moment to break free, rewrite the narrative, and step fully into the extraordinary life waiting for you. The journey won't be easy, but nothing worth having ever is. And in that struggle, you will discover your true strength, your deepest purpose, and the limitless potential within. It's knowing that you control your time, your energy, your path. When you're disciplined, you're not reactive, you're intentional. You don't bounce around based on impulse or emotion. You move with clarity. You know what you're building and you know why it matters. That kind of clarity is unstoppable. Because once you know where you're going, distractions lose their power. And yes, discipline is hard. It requires sacrifice. It demands focus. But every day you practice it, you build something stronger than just results, you build character. You build resilience. You train your mind to follow through no matter the circumstance. That's what separates those who dabble from those who dominate.